All right, welcome back to the deep dive. We all know you're here because you love to learn, but let's be real, who has the time, right? We're all about finding those shortcuts to knowledge, and, well, that's exactly what today's deep dive is all about.
Today, we're looking at someone named Eddie and how he figured out a way to learn new things way faster.
Yeah, Eddie's story really stood out to us because it's not like he was born some kind of genius or anything like that.
It's more about the approach, a strategic framework, you could say, he stumbled upon.
Exactly. Our sources describe him spending tons of time, putting in the effort, but not seeing the results he wanted.
Feeling stuck.
Yeah, totally stuck. Then he has this chance encounter with a mentor, a real turning point, where he learns this almost like a secret formula for fast-tracking his learning.
And that's what we're going to unpack in this deep dive. What were those principles Eddie learned? And more importantly, how can our listeners apply them to their own lives?
So let's jump right in. The first principle that Eddie learned was all about focusing on the 20% that gets you 80% of the results.
This is the Pareto principle, or what some people call the 80-20 rule.
Right. And what's so cool about this is Eddie's mentor pointed out that this applies to so many areas of life.
A small amount of what you do actually produces most of your outcomes.
So it's about finding that high-impact 20% and really zeroing in on it for maximum efficiency.
Exactly. And one of the examples from our sources is Eddie learning guitar instead of getting lost in all this complex music theory.
Trying to learn every chord under the sun.
Right. From the start, he focused on the most basic chords and strumming patterns.
Yeah.
And get this, mastering that relatively small skill set allowed him to play a surprisingly large number of songs.
It's all about leverage. Finding that sweet spot where a little effort goes a long way.
Absolutely. And think about it, this applies to so many things. Like, if you're learning a new language,
You wouldn't start by trying to memorize an entire dictionary.
you'd go for the most common words and phrases, the ones you'll use every day.
That's the foundation you build on. So for our listeners, I want you to think about what you're learning right now. What are those core skills or concepts that will give you the biggest bang for your buck in the beginning?
That's step one, finding your 20%.
Now, once you know what to focus on, how do you actually go about practicing? That's where Eddie's second principle comes in the idea of deliberate practice.
Ah, yes, deliberate practice. It's not just about mindlessly going through the motions. It's about being intentional and focused on improvement.
So what's the difference between that and just regular old practice?
Well, with deliberate practice, you're really targeting your weaknesses and actively working on them. Eddie's example with guitar is perfect. When he hit a difficult chord change or a tough riff,
He didn't just skip over it.
nope, he isolated that specific part and practiced it over and over again with real concentration until he nailed it.
So for someone learning to code, let's say this could mean focusing on those algorithms or data structures that just don't click right away.
Exactly. Instead of just writing simple programs that you're already comfortable with.
It's a much more targeted approach.
You're setting very specific goals for your practice sessions, constantly looking for feedback and areas to improve. It's about pushing beyond your comfort zone.
Now, this next principle is interesting. Eddie actually made a huge leap forward when he started teaching what he was learning.
The cool thing here is how teaching forces you to really understand something. When you have to explain it to someone else, you have to organize your thoughts, make them clear, and that process often reveals gaps in your own knowledge.
It's funny, you think you understand something until you try to explain it to someone who's totally new to it.
Exactly, and our sources mention that teaching helped Eddie solidify his understanding of both guitar techniques and coding principles.
Plus, it gave him a confidence boost.
And that confidence can be super motivating. So for you listeners, think about how you can share what you're learning. Explain a new concept to a friend.
Even if they're in a totally different field.
Or walk a colleague through a new skill you've picked up. The act of explaining it will really solidify your own grasp of it.
Now let's talk about memory, because that's a big part of learning. Eddie discovered these two powerful techniques, active recall and spaced repetition.
These are game changers when it comes to remembering what you learn. Active recall basically means testing yourself, constantly trying to retrieve information from memory without looking at your notes.
So instead of just rereading a chapter, you'd put the book down and try to summarize the key points.
Exactly. And then spaced repetition takes that a step further. You schedule reviews of the material at increasing intervals.
So you're not just reviewing it the next day, but maybe a few days later, then a week later, and so on.
The idea is to revisit the information right before you're about to forget it, which strengthens those memory pathways.
And there are tons of practical ways to do this: flashcards, apps like Anki, even just setting aside time to quiz yourself.
The key is to actively engage with the material and revisit it strategically over time.
Now, this next principle is a big one, especially in today's world, minimizing distractions. I know I struggle with this all the time.
It's a constant battle, right? Eddie quickly realized how easily notifications, social media, even just random thoughts could totally derail his learning.
It's like our brains are wired to be distracted.
So he took control. He created this dedicated, distraction-free environment, silenced his phone, noise-canceling headphones, even setting a timer to really focus.
So for our listeners, this is huge.
Yeah.
Actively eliminate those distractions. Put your phone away, close unnecessary tabs on your computer, and set aside specific times and places for focused learning.
And using a timer can really help too. It keeps you present and makes the most of your study time.
Now, this next principle might seem a bit counterintuitive. Eddie's mentor taught him that struggling is actually essential for growth.
We hear this a lot, but it's hard to remember when you're in the thick of it feeling frustrated.
It's easy to want to give up.
But here's the thing, when you struggle with something new, your brain is actually forming new connections, those neural pathways.
So that feeling of, this is hard, it's a sign that your brain is working hard.
It's a sign of growth.
So for our listeners, embrace the struggle. Don't be afraid of it. Those tough moments are often where the real learning happens.
Now, shifting gears a bit, Eddie also realized that his obsession with the end goal was actually holding him back.
It's so easy to get fixated on reaching a certain level of proficiency, like becoming fluent in a language or mastering a skill.
But we often forget to enjoy the journey itself.
It's about finding joy in the process of learning.
Exactly. Eddie started celebrating those small wins, like finally getting a chord right or fixing a bug in his code.
Those little victories can be really motivating.
So try to appreciate those small steps. Acknowledge your progress, no matter how small. It keeps you engaged and makes learning more sustainable.
Now, speaking of sustainable learning, Eddie's next big takeaway was the importance of breaks and rest.
This one seems counterintuitive, but stepping away from what you're learning can actually help you learn it better.
Really?
Regular breaks help prevent mental fatigue and give your brain time to process everything.
It's like hitting the reset button.
Exactly. Eddie found the Pomodoro technique really helpful. Those focused work sessions followed by short breaks.
So for our listeners, don't feel like you have to cram for hours on end. Give yourself those short, frequent breaks to recharge.
It makes a huge difference.
Now, the next principle is all about variety. Eddie learned the power of using multiple learning resources.
It's about going beyond just one textbook or online course.
So Eddie was using online courses, participating in communities, even trying to apply what he learned to real-world problems.
It kept things interesting, but also helped him reinforce those concepts in different ways.
So for our listeners, mix it up. Don't limit yourself to just one type of learning material. Explore different books, platforms, videos, podcasts, even discussions.
The more variety, the better.
And finally, Eddie learned the importance of consistency and patience.
Ah, yes, the long game. It's not about cramming everything in all at once.
It's about making learning a habit, even if it's just for a short time each day.
Eddie made it a daily practice, and that's what ultimately led to his amazing progress.
So for our listeners, set a realistic schedule that you can stick to. Even 20 to 30 minutes a day can make a huge difference over time.
Be patient with yourself and trust the process.
So to recap, Eddie's journey shows us that accelerated learning isn't about brute force. It's about working smarter, not harder.
It's about focusing on that high-impact 20%, practicing deliberately to address your weaknesses, teaching to solidify your understanding, using active recall and spaced repetition to boost memory.
Minimizing distractions to maximize focus, embracing challenges as opportunities for growth, finding joy in the process itself, taking breaks to avoid burnout, and using a variety of resources.
And above all, being consistent and patient.
Those are the key principles that helped Eddie transform his learning.
And they can help you too.
We hope you're already thinking about how to apply these strategies to your own life.
And here's a thought for you. What's one skill you've been wanting to learn that now feels within reach?
Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.
Until next time, happy learning.